Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we are installing the Curt trailer wiring harness, and this is going to be a 4-pole on a 2018 Ford Fiesta St. Now this is going to work on all your Fiesta models, and this is a great easy way to plug in and have the trailer lights work. So not that you'll be towing a whole lot with the 1.25" hitch on here, but for your small trailers or even some of your accessories like your cargo carriers and even bike racks now have a light function that requires a 4-pole. So if you want those LED lights to work on that new bike rack or cargo carrier, or if you are pulling that small trailer, this is going to be the ticket to be able to do that. Now this trailer wiring harness is designed to live inside the vehicle, so you can see we have it draped out of our hatch, which is perfectly safe to do when we need to use it. But if we don't need to use it, the great part is we can simply just kind of tuck this away and it's out of sight. Now this is also module protected, meaning that any backfeed that might come from a trailer or accessory is not going to harm the tail lights or the wiring on the vehicle. And going along with that, this is simple plug and play. So once you gain access to your tail light plugs, it's going to match up to that OEM and just kind of jump her in there. And you're going to run it to the other side, and that's going to be pretty much about it. So a very easy installation, and you'll have trailer wiring set up in less than 15 minutes. Before we begin our installation, I like to lay out the wiring harness so we kind of have a game plan of how we're going to run this. And this is going to be a pretty simple one in the fact that we don't have to run a power wire up to the battery. So you'll see we have a few wires coming off here. So first off, you're going to have these plugs, and these are going to match to our tail light plugs. And this one is going to be on our driver's side. So you'll see we have our yellow, our red, our brown, and our white. So that'll live over here. And also attached is going to be a ring terminal on our white wire, and that's just going to mount either to a factory ground, or we can self-tap it into the chassis to get our grounding point. The module is going to live kind of tucked in there, and all we have left is really this green wire, which is going to be extra long to be able to run this under our scuff panel to the tail light on our passenger side. And then we just have our 4-pole, which we can coil up and keep inside the vehicle and then just drape out of the hatch whenever we need to use it. So let's go ahead and get this started by opening up our hatch. So now we're going to go to our scuff panel here, and there's going to be a plastic cover right under here. So we'll just go ahead and just pop this off. You can use, honestly, your fingernail should be enough to kind of just pry that up. And if you need to get a little more leverage, you can use a plastic trim tool, or a flathead screwdriver will work as well. So now we'll just take our T30 bit and we'll get this loosened up. You're going to want to find a nice place to store all your hardware throughout this. And there's going to be one more on the other side, so we'll go ahead and get that removed before pulling off our scuff panel. To get your scuff panel off, you're just going to want to reach down and kind of grab the edge of the plastic and just pull up. Just take your time here. You don't want to break those little tabs there, but it should pop out, and then you can set this aside. Now our wiring harness for our taillight's going to be right here, and this is easy to kind of peel back, but to give us a little bit more room, I'm going to take a Phillips head screwdriver and just remove this screw, and that's going to allow us to kind of pull this panel, give us a little more access where the plug is. So you can see this will just kind of pop a little bit, and that's going to be enough for us to kind of just peel this back. And you can see we have a plug right there, and that looks to be pretty close to our wiring harness. So let's grab it and make sure it plugs in. So we'll separate this by pushing down this tab here, and that plug should just separate like that. And you can see these are identical, so pretty easy here. We're just going to take our factory one and plug it into our new trailer wiring harness, and then our other end is just going to pop into our factory receiver end there. So that leaves us with a white wire here. So trying to find a nice grounding point. We have a lot of raw metal that we can self-tap into. I'm going to see if we have a factory ground that we can use, but worst case scenario, we got plenty of options here to be able to drill in and get that mounted up. I didn't find any factory grounds to tie off to, but that's okay. We have a self-tapping screw that's included in the kit, so we can mount this up kind of wherever's clean, as long as it doesn't make any interference with the plastic. But there's a recessed portion here, so I'm going to probably mount it right up here. I made sure that there's nothing behind there that it's going to make contact with, but it's going to be a solid metal connection. Now on your ring terminal, you'll see it's got a flat side. You want that facing against the metal just to kind of give it the best contact. So I'll go ahead and get this drilled in. And if the self-tapper gives you a little trouble, you can always put a little pilot hole by using a small drill bit and just pre-drilling a hole, as long as it's a smaller diameter than the self-tapping screw. As long as it's tight enough to where this ring terminal is not spinning around, that should be fine. You don't want to over tighten it, as that can kind of strip out the hole that it's made, so just make sure that it's snug. So now we can route our green wire over to our passenger side, and it's going to kind of just run along our scuff panel. There's a few holes along here that I see that we can throw some zip ties to kind of keep that up and tight against it. And once the scuff panel's on, you're not going to be able to see it. So same thing, we have a Phillips head screw here, so I'm just going to pop this out. So you can see I've routed my green wire over here and just plugged that in, just as we did on the driver's side. So from there I kind of pulled the slack and found a few spots along here. There's some large access holes that you can run a zip tie through with the smaller hole, and this is just going to kind of keep this wire tight. And if you set it above here, when we put that kick plate or scuff panel back on, this is all going to be tucked in. So as long as you have a few attachments to where it's not dragging down, you should be good, and just kind of pull that slack over. Then we can tighten all this wiring up, and that should be just about it. Now before we button up our driver's side, we're going to want to mount our module, and part of it is going to be just kind of making sure we clean up our wires and kind of get this in a spot where over time it's not going to become loose or fall down. And there is a double-sided tape that comes with the kit, and we'll just go ahead and put this on the flat surface here. And I'm also going to see that there's two holes up top here, so I'm going to just take a zip tie and run it through our wires, and that's also going to make sure that over time, if this doesn't stay sticky, that we can have this zip tied up. It's not going to go anywhere, and once we do that, I can tie up the rest of the wires and get this all put back together. Now as far as mounting spots, this seems to be really good as it's flat underneath here, and like I said, I use the zip ties on these two holes to kind of cinch this up, as well as our tape. So that's going to live under here, and then I've just tied up some of my wires, that way they're kind of hidden back. Now your 4-pole is going to live in the vehicle until you need it, and then when you do need it, you're going to drape it out. So you can find a nice clean spot for this. The Fiesta does have a little cubby here, so I'm going to try to route my wires, and that way I have it accessible right here whenever I need it. So I'll go ahead and just kind of tuck this down. So this little cubby, you can actually pull this pocket out, and there's going to be a slit here, so I'm going to run my 4-pole in through there. And that wire should still allow us to get our cubby back in place. And then with this tucked back there, it's going to be hidden and out of sight just by coiling this up and having this live in that cubby. Now with everything back in place, we're ready to test this out. So I'm going to go ahead and take our 4-pole, feed this out of the vehicle, and it can sit really anywhere along here as long as you're not putting it by the latch, because this weather stripping is going to be just enough space for it to not get crunched down. Now for our testing, I'm going to be using a 4-pole tester, and this is just going to indicate when we go through our light signals that they're all working properly. And these are really nice because you don't have to hook up to a trailer, and if your trailer has some faulty wiring, sometimes you can get a false negative that the vehicle wiring's bad. So with this little tester, we should be able to see that it is working. So I'll hop in the car and we'll go through the light sequence. So starting off, we'll go to our running lights. Next, we'll do our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and then finally our brakes. With all of them working properly, I'm ready to either hook up to my trailer or tuck this in and start using it whenever I need it. And that was a look and installation of the Curt 4-pole trailer wiring harness on a 2018 Ford Fiesta.